George Eliot's Middlemarch starts very much in the Jane Austen style. We have Dorothea Brooke, a smart, young, beautiful woman who doesn't even realize she's being courted. However, both men are rich. One is young and beautiful, the other one not so much, but that means he's smart, right? So, who will she choose? Hi, I'm Maria from Read Fine Books, and today we are talking about Dorothea and her marrying Casaubon. So, why did she do it? Well, Dorothea is special. A young lady of some birth and fortune who knelt suddenly down on a brick floor by the side of a sick laborer and prayed fervently as if she thought herself living in the time of the apostles, who had strange whims of fasting like a papist, and of sitting up at night to read old theological books. Such a wife might awaken you some fine morning with a new scheme for the application of her income, which would interfere with political economy and the keeping of saddle horses. A man would naturally think twice before he risked himself in such a fellowship. Dorothea knew many passages of Pascal's Pensées and of Jeremy Taylor by heart. She was enamored of intensity and greatness and rash in embracing whatever seemed to her to have those aspects, likely to seek martyrdom, to make retractions, and then to incur martyrdom after all in a quarter where she had not sought it. Dorothea, with all her eagerness to know the truths of life, retained very childlike ideas of marriage. If you think now all that doesn't sound so weird, she seems like the perfect ingenue of the time. Well, her own ideas of marriage are: the really delightful marriage must be that where your husband was a sort of father and could teach you even Hebrew if you wished it. What? Dorothea, are you alright? So, this is weird, right? Who thinks this way? Well, Dorothea does. So, of course, she chose for a husband the dashing Reverend Edward Casaubon. He's one of the most distinguished looking men I ever saw. He is remarkably like the portrait of Locke. He has the same deep eye sockets. So, if it wasn't clear, the picture here shows John Locke. And he's obviously any 19-year-old dreamy husband slash father, of course. But while Dorothea's dreams involved learning Hebrew on a whim, well, Edward Casaubon is a little more practical. I have little leisure for such literature just now. I have been using up my eyesight on old characters lately. The fact is, I want a reader for my evenings, but I am fastidious in voices, and I cannot endure listening to an imperfect reader. It is a misfortune in some senses. I feed too much on the inward sources. I live too much with the dead. My mind is something like the ghost of an ancient wandering about the world and trying mentally to construct it as it used to be, in spite of ruin and confusing changes. He himself is very rich and noted in the county as a man of profound learning, understood for many years to be engaged on a great work concerning religious history. And Dorothea's uncle tries to explain to her she might have the wrong opinion on Casaubon. Well, now, I've known Casaubon 10 years, ever since he came to Lowick, but I never got anything out of him, any ideas, you know. However, he is a tip-top man, and maybe a bishop, that kind of thing, you know. Her uncle, Mr. Brooks, also tries to talk about Casaubon's age. He's over 45, you know. I should say a good 27 years older than you. To be sure, if you like learning and standing and that sort of thing, we can't have everything, and his income is good. Still, he is not young, and I must not conceal from you, my dear, that I think his health is not over strong. I know nothing else against him. However, Dorothea thinks they are the perfect fit, so after an enthusiastic letter from Casaubon, in which he asks her to marry him, and yes, he asked her to marry him in a letter. Can you imagine? A letter which made Dorothea ecstatic. Now she would be able to devote herself to large yet definite duties. Now she would be allowed to live continually in the light of a mind that she could reverence. This hope was not unmixed with the glow of proud delight, the joyous maiden surprise that she was chosen by the man whom her admiration had chosen. Casaubon thought he will marry a secretary, and Dorothea thought she will marry a genius. This is clearly a recipe for disaster, and it is just the beginning of the book. This is what I loved Middlemarch for so much. And this is the interesting part. How did it come to this? Is Dorothea so naive? Why did she marry Casaubon? As I have shown until this point, Dorothea is special. She has the mind of her own. She is different than other girls her age and wants something different in a marriage. She wants something more than homemaking and has a deep thirst for knowledge and for study. Casaubon's reputation recommends him as actually the only one in the area that actually has a similar purpose. He is a scholar trying to write a masterwork, the key to all mythologies. Reputation in those times, of course, meant everything, and it is no wonder he feels like the perfect escape from her life. This is how the impetus with which inclination became resolution was heightened by those little events of the day which had roused her discontent with the actual conditions of her life. And now we wonder, how can life be so bad for a young heiress that she feels she must marry a middle-aged, ugly old man to escape it? How hard were the things for her? And the answer is hidden in plain sight by George Eliot. Women were expected to have weak opinions, but the great safeguard of society and of domestic life was that opinions were not acted on. And if Mr. Brooks, her uncle, lets her have her opinions and actually lets her act upon them when it suits him, that doesn't happen with everything she wants. And in fact, her uncle has the lowest opinion on women's intellect. Young ladies don't understand political economy, said Mr. Brooke, smiling towards Mr. Casaubon. I cannot let young ladies meddle with my documents. Young ladies are too flighty. Your sex are not thinkers, So this is how Dorothea's guardian talks. This is his opinion on women's intellect. And that means that he doesn't value Dorothea's opinions at all. And he is presumably the only father figure she has. She has been orphaned at 12, living with other families, but Mr. Brooks is her only relative. All the while, Casaubon takes an actual interest in her and her intellect. You have an excellent secretary at hand, you perceive. Well, sort of. No one other than Dorothea would make from such a small sentence such a big deal, but this remains a statement of Casaubon's openness to giving women actual praise and responsibilities. And to all this comes the comparison with the other young man who was courting Dorothea before Casaubon, Sir James Chettam, an amiable, handsome baronet who said exactly to her remarks even when she expressed uncertainty. How could he affect her as a lover? Sir James Chettam was also rich. He was a gentleman as well. He could have been the perfect match for Dorothea, but she recognizes her intellectual superiority over him, and she knows she could have never respected him, not truly. Even though Sir James Chatham is the only one who actually acts upon her desires, at least for now, when he sees her as a prospective bride. But the fact remains, she didn't respect him, so the choice is clear. Because of his dignified silence and reputation, Casaubon seems a genius, and the comparison to Sir James goes to his advantage. Dorothea's need for a father figure who actually appreciates her knowledge and intellect is clear. Edward Casaubon seems the perfect man for her. What did you think of Dorothea and Casaubon? Did you like their romance? Did you think she goes in this marriage fully expecting it to be successful? Do you think she would have been better off marrying Sir James Chatham? Let's start the conversation on Middlemarch. Tell me your favorite thing about it. I'm Maria from Read Fine Books. Thank you for watching.